hello, everybody, and welcome. It is a wonderful Monday night, and I'm telling you right now, if you did not tune in to John an hour ago as he led a lovely discussion about music, and especially with regards to weddings, you're like me, because I didn't tune in either, but I was told it was a great show. So definitely want to make sure you catch that on replay. John, I think it's available for replay.
It is,
right?
Yep. It's up on YouTube, Facebook, and the different spots and such. But for those of you wondering what we're talking about, is I just went through the top 200 DJ event planner compiles a list at the end of the year of the most requested songs, and this was the wedding version, the top 200 most requested wedding songs from last year. And went through and just kind of, for those of you who are newer getting into it and really haven't done much with weddings, this might help you to understand where to put some of the songs and some of the thought process behind how to use some of the songs. Because some songs, you use this much of the song because people get bored of it. They love the beginning, the hook, and So that's what tonight's show is about, and it covered a lot of ground.
I gotta ask a question. Was this year's, well, I'm guessing it was looking at 2020.
Correct. Was
it different than other years because of the restrictions and stuff, or was it all pretty much the same? Close to the same.
It was very much the same. There really wasn't much of anything. And I mean, we see this even on the requests and such that are coming up here for this year. There really isn't a ton of releases from 2021. And
I thought a lot of people would maybe request "We Will Survive," "I Will Survive" by what's
and that's always been in there, of course, for that situation. But I think, and then we'll move on. But I think we're not going to see a ton of songs from 2021 or 2020 making the request things, because a lot of those songs when they were released, it was during a dark time for a lot of people, and they're not going to want to be taken back to that moment. And songs generally take you back to a positive time or a positive experience. So for those of you who are like, oh yeah, I didn't get to play anything from 2020, that might be the way, that might be life going forward. So, okay, enough of that. We have our lists.
Yes. So tonight, just to kind of preview, we bounced around with, I think, about 4 different titles for tonight's show. Everything's from DJs you should know to industry influencers, I think was another one we tossed around. And no matter what we came up with, MJ just didn't like any of them. So you know what, we said heck with MJ's thoughts, and John just came up with a beautiful title for tonight. But we're talking about specifically typically I should say DJs. There could be maybe 1 or 2 that make a list that don't fall under that category, that are somehow making an influence. I'm taking kind of like an East Coast / 5-10 years ago slant. We've got John, who's maybe going a little bit back in history, but more on the mobile side. And MJ, well, he's supposed to be going one direction, but I don't know if he is or not. So I'm going to stop there, because he wanted to give a disclaimer, and I think now would be the perfect time to do so.
First off, Dan stole the first half of my disclaimer when it came to the names. Because we started with DJ industry influencers, and then went names you should know in the DJ industry, then DJ industry forefathers that paved the way, and the one that settled it all was Dan saying, MJ, quit overthinking it and just come up with some names. And that pretty much settled it for me. That was all it took.
Before we get started, can I share a little write-up I prepared for the most influential person in the DJ industry?
Sure.
And we're talking about the one and only Huey Lewis. Through the power of love, we can be working for a living and still smile because he has taught us what it was to be hip, to be square. While during those dark times, some felt that bad was bad, but as we were walking on a thin line, we found that together, I was stuck with you in this perfect world. As my good friend Jacob said from his ladder, you may want a new drug. I might be doing it all for my baby, but in the end, we have finally found a home. So give me the keys so we can take a couple of days off. Yes, Huey Lewis does crack me up. Most inspirational.
I recognize maybe 2 or 3 titles in there.
It might have been more recognizable if he sang the whole thing. Can you do it again, singing it, John?
Oh, I just clicked delete.
Thank goodness.
The last part of my disclaimer is my list is better than both you guys. That's all there is to it. My list is going to kick your list's butt.
That's not going to be too difficult at all.
Yeah.
But that's only in my opinion. On everybody else's opinion, people are just going to be like, can we just ask MJ not to show up next week because it's very different, and I mean very different. I promise that we will not have crisscross names at all.
Yeah, Dan and I.
But what's wrong with crisscross? A little jump.
They're good producers now. I just read an article about some of the stuff they're producing. So yeah,
that's making money. So where do we want to start, Dan? Where do you want to?
I guess I'll start. So mine are in no particular order, but one of them that I feel is important for us to go ahead and throw there is Mike Walter. For those of you that don't know Mike, which is kind of weird if you know us and know the show, but yet you somehow don't know this guy. But anyway, Mike wrote the book on multi-up. Literally, like Mike has quite a few different books. He's a very well-known speaker in the expo game. But he has a multi-amp company with at least 20 DJs on his staff. And even at a time like COVID and everything else, he kept his business going and just does a fantastic job. But one of the reasons why I also feel he's an influencer, not just from the standpoint of what he's done by himself, but this is a guy who speaks at pretty much every convention he's allowed to. In some form or fashion, and if you never heard him speak, he's very polished. He's very worked. He works through the content, and he's engaging the entire time. So he's got your attention, and what he's giving you is just nugget after nugget after nugget of gold material. So he ranks. He's my number one is what I've got on my list. Again, no particular order, but he's my first one that I would definitely say that is a name that if you don't know, look it up. Michael Walter. No S, and you will know who we're talking about.
Excellent. Good place to start. MJ, you want to go next, or do you want me to do my first?
I think you should go next,
okay.
Sean.
So I'm going to kind of, mine's going to be more historical in the mobile DJ type world. And my first one is actually going to stay on the East Coast with this one. Vinny Testa is the person, a name that you guys probably may have heard or maybe not. Vinny is the man behind DJ Times, and he's basically the guy who started it. He's the one that would, in essence, be the owner, CEO, what have you. Vinny's been in the musical industry forever, and he is still going strong out there with DJ Times. And if you get lucky, you can sometimes meet him in the hallway at the show there. And DJ Times was the original show, the original mobile DJ type show or club DJ, but it was the first one that DJs, conventions that DJs had. There was an East Coast version, and there was for a period of time a West Coast version. And now it's basically just gone down to an East Coast in Atlantic City in August. So if you don't know who Vinny is, it's definitely a person, you probably won't get to meet him. It's just but it's someone you need to know. Okay,
MJ? Oh, it's my turn. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So the person that I picked, and mine aren't technically in an order, but the first two, I put them up high. The rest of them can be put in any order. But the first one is absolutely the most influential DJ that ever lived. What he did, every single one of us had to follow. Okay? Now, by definition of DJ, I'm taking the average person's definition of DJ, not of someone who can mix, but of just someone who plays back recorded material. So with that definition of a DJ, the first DJ ever was Thomas Edison. Now, I personally am a George Westinghouse fan because he let his people keep their patents where Thomas Edison would take them and just go, hey, look what I can do, which he really never did anything. But he was the first person in the planet to play back recorded material. And that was done way back in 1877. And the fact that he even pirated a song to do it because he sang Mary Had a Little Lamb. Didn't even own the rights to it. He just recorded it and played it.
What a rebel.
He rebelled right from the beginning. So the whole industry was set about playing back songs and stealing music. So he influenced everybody more than anything. So top of my list, all time, Thomas Edison.
Wow, and here I thought I was going back in time. Okay, Dan, who's number 2 on your list?
Number 2 for me is Steve Moody. Steve is another guy that is up from the East Coast. Steve is out of Maryland area, and one of those guys that he always holds a special place to me, because when I went to Atlantic City for the first time to the first expo, Steve used to do this seminar called the All-Star MCs, and it would be a collection of 5 or 6 different DJs from around the country, and they would give a spiel for about 5, maybe 10 minutes, just talking about a routine or an element that they did in MCing, and something that helped them to be an entertainer, and presented on it in just a cool fashion. So Steve, and when I got there and I did it, Steve was the very first one to speak, and my jaw dropped open. And it was in that moment that I kind of started to realize the world that I was living in regarding mobile entertaining was so small from what I ever thought it could be. And so to see Steve, what Steve was able to do with that, and Steve also has a multi-op company. So again, one of those guys that I've kind of looked to see how he and his wife, they are a team that own the company. That is it for them. Like it's not like she goes off and does something else for a job and he has a business. The two of them are the team and they own that company. So I think he's, again, one of those guys you definitely want to look up and pay attention to and check out.
Yeah, for sure.
I wish he was still doing that expo, still doing that seminar, but
yeah, it's been a few years since he's done that one.
Yeah.
Okay, my second one, actually mine is a tandem, and I want to kind of group them together. We talked about the East Coast, the originators of that, DJ Times and DJ Expo. Jumping out, I want to talk about Mike Bonacorso and Robert Lindquist, Bob Lindquist. Some of you know Bob from the Photo Booth Expo. He is kind of the guy behind the scenes at Photo Booth Expo doing a lot of things there. But he started out as a DJ, and then he and Mike Bonacorso started Mobile Beat magazine back in the 90s. They came in right behind DJ Times. DJ Times had their thing. They came in, started theirs, and then they started putting a show out in Las Vegas, where the first show was kind of tied in with the nightclub and bar show, and then after time they separated and became their own show, and had the early 2000s just an incredible show that had 1,000+ DJs from around the world coming out there for educational content at different casinos in Las Vegas. They continued until 2006 when they sold the magazine and sold the show. But those two were, for a lot of mobile DJs, especially those west of the Mississippi, this was their show. And these guys were the ones who were able to put that together and build that out there and do some really, really neat things with that. So Mike Bonacorso and Bob Lindquist, two guys that were very instrumental in those early days. And Mike, they're both... Well, Mike's retired and doing his thing, and Bob is working a little bit with Photo Booth Expo off and on and such. So, yeah, those are my next two.
I'm glad you grouped some, because not in this one, but the next one I have a couple grouped because they're all part of the same sort of thing. Yeah. But my next one, obviously I was not alive around when Thomas Edison was throwing down the tracks back in the day, literally on wax. Yeah. But this next one I was alive for and lived through it, and I would say, without a doubt, this person has changed every DJ's life the way they do everything, without a doubt. And I was happy about it. A lot of DJs complain about it, but it's a young man, well, he's not young now, he was then, by the name of Sean Fanning. And if you don't know who Sean Fanning is, he's the guy who created Napster. Sean gave us a way to download songs from our house. We didn't freaking have to go to a store and dig for hours. We could download at our house. We could also download a single song at a time, because I'm not listening to this crap. I'm playing it. So I don't need an album. I don't need to look at the album cover. I don't need to read the album notes. I just need to play the song and the version that I want to play. And Sean gave us that. He gave us the ability to play these songs and to hear them and to make them part of our collection. And one of the other things he did that I'm going to speak about on a few other people, but he gave us songs that we were able to listen to that weren't given to us by a record label or a radio station.
Yep, I remember that.
That's one of the things that I'm going to talk about in the future, is the fact that how he and what he did there opened up everything that we're doing now when it comes to music, from all the download services that we're a part of, even before that, the CD and DVD services that came before that, all were based around what he kind of created as this thing, to where I didn't have to rely on a certain a record pool that would give me a CD with 200 songs or something like that. I could get that song for that night. And I remember the first one I downloaded was Madonna's Music Moves the People. And it was played that night because it was a recording for her performing on TV. They had the audio on there. It was not released for anyone to play because the album hadn't been released yet. She just did the song. That night, I played the freaking song.
You had it.
That's what it's about right there. Sean Fanning, thank you for giving us the way we consume music today.
That was good. You're doing really well, MJ.
He is.
Yeah,
for someone who was worried about this.
No kidding. He's making us look like a couple of slackers.
He is.
Well, Dan, we'll do our third one, and it's going to be pale. It'll pale in comparison, But
I guess so. Although I'm going to try and bring it just a little bit higher here. Since you guys went with the team, I'm going to go with the team as well. And this is probably cheating a little bit, but I'm going to use Jason Jani and his SCE group because that allows me to use Nick Spinelli. That allows me to use Jeffrey Gold. That allows me to use Tony. Oh, what is the guy's name? I'm blanking on his last name. Sorry, Tony. But so I basically that entire group. So first off, Jason is just, when it comes to pushing envelopes for high level weddings and events, Jason knows what he's doing. He basically is one of those guys that he's not afraid to try something. A lot of us are starting to get into the DJ furniture. I'm not saying Jason was one of the first ones, but he and his group was probably one of the ones that I saw first on a major level. Right. Again, like I said, I'm sure people were doing it and I'm sure it was something, but his was the first where I was seeing where it was slick, it was polished, and it looked like just crazy to be at a wedding where he was using this type of setup. And he's recently kind of, to come through COVID and stuff like that, he's been doing some more stuff online and creating some more videos for people to watch and giving some input, everything from beginner level up to, I wouldn't say he's doing real high end stuff in his YouTube videos yet, but it kind of in that low to middle range of what he's doing. But then he's also kind of been pushing some of his guys to do some of the same. And Nick's been putting out a lot of videos lately and getting a lot of attention for his stuff. And really pushing some of those, everything from, little product reviews and stuff like that, but also to, hey, this is what I do and this is why I do it, type of thing, just to kind of give, again, more insight and more justice to kind of some of that high, again, I want to say like boutique or that high level type of parties and weddings. MJ, you okay?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why am I not okay?
You just kind of had that look on your face.
I'm reading chats.
Yeah,
okay.
They're pretty busy in the chat room.
You're starting to sing it in your head, aren't you?
Okay, so my next is a progression, a progression of people in this one. Talking about the DJ associations and the people involved with that. Initially, the very first DJ association was the ADJA, American Disc Jockey Association, which was an East Coast group, an East Coast association, founded by a number of people, but the name that probably makes the most sense to be paying attention to is a gentleman by the name of Bruce Kessler. Bruce started it with a team of people, and during that time, they got the association up and running and were doing their things. There were some legal issues that happened and things such as that. And if you want more information on that you can go dig into that, or you can ask off air. The ADJ became kind of a defunct East Coast thing because of the situation with the leadership and the legal stuff. Then a gentleman by the name of Mark Thomas from the West Coast basically resurrected the ADJ, took it out west, and started it up and built it into getting it to what we know it as today. During Mark's time, he went to shows and was building the membership and doing different things, getting some things together for a DJ helpline, so that hey, if something dies, there's a DJ in Need program. He was really the beginning of that side of it. During that time, Bruce then started up NAME as the East Coast Association, which a number of years ago, Bruce passed away, and his wife, Carol, is now basically running NAME. Carol and her team have been running that for a number of years out there on the East Coast. Back to the West Coast of the ADJ, Mark Thomas ran it for a while. He incorporated Peter Mary into that, and Peter was involved with it for a while, doing some of the tour around the country, starting different chapters and things around the area. And then a number of years ago, Drax took over the ADJA and became the president of the ADJ and the ownership group of that. And he has been running the ADJ, and that is Dr. Drax, if you guys have looked for him online. But that's really been kind of the progression of the two major associations in the DJ industry and some of the names involved with those events. MJ.
Okay, before I go into my next one, I'd just like to point out the fact that I'm sticking with theme T-shirts on our shows. So this is an important DJ, the Screaming Monkey DJ shirt that I own. I just think it's really important till I show that off. Now, okay, the next names on my list all have to do with the same thing. I'm going to tell you the names first. Daniel Eck, Martin Lorenzen, and Eric Wassoff. I can't even say that right. Walsforce. I said that right. Okay. So those names are in every one of our pockets. Okay? Those names are in every one of our homes. Those of you who do weddings have to deal with these guys on a regular. Some of you like it, some of you don't. Okay? But nonetheless, they have shaped our job as DJs so much. The first two guys created Spotify. The next one created SoundCloud. You say, but that has nothing to do with DJing. Well, how many of you have to deal with Spotify playlists from people?
Yeah.
Most important thing, they gave artists a chance to get their music heard on the exact same level as high-name artists. So if I put a song on Spotify or SoundCloud and it becomes super popular, it's not popular because a record label said to listen to this or a radio station said to listen to this. It is simply this. It's popular. How did I write that? I wrote it out really nicely here. Popular because popular is popular. Yeah. They gave us a way to listen to music without a yapping on-air personality, without interrupting my songs with news breaks that I don't want to hear. I can just listen to stuff. It gave like I said, the artist a chance to kind of be there. And it even has become a verb. I'll Spotify that song later.
Yeah.
I'll check me on SoundCloud or you know what I mean? It has become way more than that. And they have formed the way that charts and stuff are looked at. It's not anymore like it used to be with the radio stations and whatnot. People, if they like a song, because how many times this past year, because you guys don't watch the charts as much as I do, somebody releases a new song, a new album, okay? Let's say little so-and-so, because there's 1,000 little so-and-sos, have released an album, and you will find all of their songs on the Billboard chart because they become the most listened to on Spotify or SoundCloud. Mm-hmm. That has affected all of our jobs in so many levels as to way we have to pay attention to music, the music that is popular that we have to get, and the stuff that we have to play, and how quickly we need to get it sometimes to play it. So those guys, I think, have affected us in a very large way.
Yeah, I would agree. Good point. Dan, number 4.
Back to me. We're back to me. All right. I've been altering my list, so I apologize if I'm going to take one that we didn't talk about.
Yeah.
Mark Farrell. So for those of you that don't know Mark Farrell, Mark is him and his wife lead an MC class based out of California, and oftentimes they travel all over, give you a chance to be able to take something local. They have multiple tiers to it and multiple different levels, but Mark is probably most known for a seminar that he gave over 20 years ago at this point, titled Getting What You're Worth. And it was one of those things that really started to push the mentality of a lot of DJs from making enough just basically to cover, the alcohol tab for the weekend, to being able to actually make a living off of what they were doing. There was many people that were doing it before this seminar, but this is probably one of those that started to gain the national attention from that. Originally at the time, I want to say like the average DJ was around $600, and Mark at the time was saying, listen, we need to be starting at $1,200. He really thought it was supposed to be higher than that, but it was starting at $1,200 and pushing that envelope. And has since said, we're many years from that, we should probably even higher, but at least talking from that. And as there's a lot of pieces that go into the Getting What You're Worth seminar, and you can check it out. I would encourage you, don't just take snippets that you often see online, but ingest the whole thing, because if you take the little snippets, you're going to kind of get like a weird twisted view of some people. But again, it's one of those ideas that really started to push the idea of not just making more money, but making more money because you are worth more money, and really using that. And so again, Mark leads that. And again, from the Getting What You're Worth to his different seminar work, or it's different MC workshops that he has. And again, workshops, not seminars. So you are like intensely there and get rung through the ringer quite a bit on each of them. That's my number 4.
Interesting thing that this past week, Nick Spinelli released a video, which is basically Getting What You're Worth, Nick Spinelli style.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting. So if you guys get a chance, go check out Nick Spinelli's YouTube channel or his Facebook page. So
I did find it funny that it was a lot of very similar things when I was hearing it. And in some ways it was kind of interesting because he was using current stats from Wedding Wire and The Knot and different things like that. And yet the point was still the same of being here and this is where the average is, but this is where we should be starting at. So, yeah.
My next is another pair. But before I get to the pair, we have to kind of preface this. Early on in the DJ industry, a lot of us, we kind of were starting to meet on this thing called ICQ, and early instant messenger. Some of us were in AOL chats. ICQ is that, and that we kind of progressed from those into DJ chat forums. The early ones, Mobile Beat, actually had one of these in the early days as part of their, in the magazine, and you can go and connect on the chat, and then we'll see you in Vegas type of a situation. After a period of time of trying to manage that and just finding out it wasn't worth it, the chat room, they kind of stepped back and they let a tandem of Sid Vanderpool and Ryan Berger kind of look over that area. And from there, through different situations, you ended up having Ryan Berger with ProDJ.com and Sid Vanderpool with DJChat.com, both of which were very active throughout the early 2000s and had large followings, completely, in some cases, different audiences and different tonalities of audiences. During that time also, Mark Farrell, somewhere in that ballpark, came out with Disc Jockey America, which was another chat forum. But really, Ryan Berger and Sid Vanderpool, for a lot of people, their chat boards were, some of the early ways people kind of found out that there were other DJs out there and connected with other DJs through ProDJ.com and DJ Chat. So those are two more names in the history of the mobile DJ world. MJ.
Okay, so I'm giving you 3 guys on here, okay? Names that have changed our lives again and continue to mold our DJ lives so much. That is Jawad Carmen, Steve Chen, and Chad Hurley. They were the gentlemen who invented YouTube. And you might say, well, what does YouTube have to do with DJing? Well, according to the International Federation of Phonographic Industry, the IFPI, in 2019, on-demand video streaming, audio streaming, music, stuff like that, accounted for 47% of the global demand for online music, for music streaming. Half of all songs listened to are done through YouTube.
Yep.
So you think that it's not important, but it is. And the first thing that made it important years ago was the fact that it gave us a place to conveniently download songs that we wanted and couldn't get somewhere else. So for some people, it was a source that we just didn't have. I still go there to get remixes that I want. Sometimes I can't get a clean version. And trust me, I subscribe to more than one service. And maybe I can't get a clean version on a song that just came out today. I can go there and someone has made a clean version that I can get. Always. Always there's one there. So it is a source still to this day for me. It is a place that you can make playlists and express your love of different music, and that you can get an entire playlist downloaded from something that someone else has made, because I know people who do that. But it just is a way, to the point where they have their own chart now. And DJs, if you follow me on my Rewind Report Facebook page, every Tuesday I post charts for the week, because Billboard comes out on Tuesday. So I give a link there for the Billboard chart, the YouTube chart, and the Spotify chart, because those are ones that if you are playing up-to-date music, you need to pay attention to. But YouTube, I think, has molded us so much in the way that our listeners take in songs, that it seriously has changed how we have to do our jobs. And I think that has, on such a level, even to the point now of us getting to show what we do on there until they shut us down halfway through our stream. Not that that's ever happened to me. But all of these things now are part of our norm. And if it wasn't for YouTube, we wouldn't have the channels like Twitch and whatnot to do the video streaming on. So it has become, I think, a huge part of a DJ's life. And if you are not tapping into that resource, I'm not going to say anything else.
I think,
I'm surprised you. Oh, go ahead.
I think one of the things that I have found with YouTube at events is the number of times people come up and they want that YouTube version of a song, because it's a different version than anything else you can find. And it's like how it affects what we do, for surely.
I was going to, Dan, you have to say what you're going to say, but John, I was actually going to point out to you, you know someone that went to a dance that was DJ'd all by YouTube videos, didn't you? Mm-hmm. And the people loved it, didn't they?
Yeah. That's what they had to do, because they were having problems with other their hard drive died.
and I was at a club once where they were doing a private party, and the guy who was doing the private party was doing the entire party from YouTube. No mixing. He would just have another YouTube player ready, and when this one ended, he would press play on this one.
Yeah, as long as you commercial, as long as you've got the YouTube read, you're good.
Making money from it. So
yeah,
YouTube people. Dan, what were you going to say?
I was just surprised that you didn't throw in the gentleman who decided to create YouTubeDownloader.com or whatever happened to be it.
Because they change so often. That's why I picked just one. Because I mean, I do these what do you call them, scripts that go in behind Chrome browser. It's not like I go to a website. I have a built-in code that's put into my Chrome that when I go to YouTube, it actually puts a button there. So all I have to do is hit that button and it downloads it automatically. So, you know, people go, hey, what website do you? I don't use any website. I use a code that's built into Chrome that makes downloading a button away. So, and also I can get thumbnails off of anyone. So every time that I need to post something that John posts, like tonight's video, and I need a thumbnail to share, I have a button that I press and it gives me the thumbnail from every one of those, and I can just share that then. So. YouTube people.
YouTube.
Where you're at, right? You freaking couldn't watch us right now without YouTube.
Yeah, there is that.
Influence.
It has an influence. Dan, you're up. Let's see. This is your number 5.
Number 5. You got to let me have a 6th, though, okay?
Okay.
Oh, man. I went like 7 or 8. All right, so
just to let you know, my 5th one is really short, so that you can have all my time.
Okay, there we go. So then I'm going to go with Randy Bartlett. I'm going to go with him next. So Randy has done phenomenal number of seminars and presentations and videos and critiquing, and Randy is a gentleman from out in California. I think he's still technically living out there somewhere, but he's retired. But this is a gentleman who, you know, kind of paved the way for a lot of different things when it came to polishing our presentation. It was one of those things where he was not afraid to basically take video from other DJs and said, you know, send it to me and I'll critique it and write it up and work at it. And he would actually sit down and he would tear it apart in a Randy Bartlett kind of way. So that means kind of mean, but kind of good. And in the end, you learn a lot. But one of the things that I thought was always good was he started to kind of pick up on what were trends that were happening across the country not necessarily that he was doing, but that he was seeing other people doing, and not trends that you want to emulate, but stuff that was kind of creating a problem. And he started then focusing on ways to eliminate that on a grander scale. And he's the person who's behind the 1% solution. If you've not heard that, that's another thing you definitely want to check out. There's about 5 or 6 videos at this point that he's done. And then one of his people from his team, Michael Anderson, has kind of taken on and done 1 or 2 as well. So definitely something to check out and use and think about. And again, it's all about improving your performance and taking it that next step.
And he does a weekly show here on DJNTV that hits the airwaves on Wednesday mornings.
Yeah, he's not really retired.
Yeah,
he's
not
retired
so
from
much.
DJing.
Yeah, he's now building his cabin in the woods or something. So I've got 2 here. I've got kind of a East Coast and a West Coast, for lack of a better way to describe this. The first one, for interaction and engaging an audience. That was something for a lot of us, as MJ kind of described, the playing of music where you play a song and then there wasn't mixing, there wasn't fading, there wasn't talking. And early on at the conventions, one person that really kind of opened the eyes to a lot of us that there was more to interaction was John Ross. John Ross is a performer from the East Coast who does bar mitzvahs and different things, but he was a guy up on stage and he was doing games and activities and different things. And he was showing that we could do more than just play music at an event. And for a lot of us, that was kind of an eye-opening moment. You know, wow, the only interaction we ever did, besides basic introductions, was maybe a game of musical chairs, and that was very limited. He had this whole repertoire of things that he would do at different shows to show us, at conventions to show us these things. Then the next one that kind of take it a step further was Todd Mitchum. Todd Mitchum was, they came onto the scene talking about interaction, and he would be talking about really doing things with follow me, hey, everyone, watch me do what I do, and getting the crowd interacting to the song and entertaining from the stage, but using the crowd as part of that entertainment. And that was another kind of an eye-opening experience for a lot of us, because he was able to do some of the games, some activities, and he was able to do some things along with the music and demonstrating some ideas with that. So you could, instead of just playing the songs, there was more entertainment that could be happening. So John Ross and Todd Mitchum are 2 names that really brought interaction to the DJ industry.
Okay, like I said, this one's going to be short, and I'm going to need John's help with this. This person has not only revolutionized the past of DJing, not only dominates the present of DJing, but will continue to own the future of DJing. And I'm going to say his name, and John, you have to tell me where he's from, what he does, whatever, however you want to say it. But the man's name is Stefan Cavell.
I have no idea.
Oh, you don't know?
No, Stefan Cavell.
He's the man who created Virtual DJ.
I did not know that. I did not know that.
I'm surprised you didn't throw like a Bill Gates or a Steve Wozniak.
Well, I have other stuff on the list of stuff like that, because I was going to skip people altogether and just talk about things, because I think that, smartphones should be on that list. I think what else is on my list here? The first controller ever, the Hercules controller, the sync button. I want to give a hands up to the sync button, because if it wasn't for the sync button, what would snooty vinylist have to complain about? Bad needles, non-quartz lock, turntables, what? So. But that's my last one, and I think it's important.
Yeah, that actually, Stefan Cavell, I did not know that's who's behind.
I had to look it up too, because I only know the guy. I only know the guy that you talk to all the time.
Yeah, there's a handful of guys that you see at shows, and so. All right, Dan, your last one. I've got one more set here also.
No, you go first.
Okay. The last ones we're going to talk about are some of the early YouTube people who were out there creating videos in the DJ industry, and that tandem, and I say a tandem is because they both were doing this about the same time, was Brian Redd, tomorrow night's Brian Redd, our guy, and Jonathan Lewis, but also known as DJ Tudor. Jonathan is from the UK, and Brian is from Milwaukee, and they started out early in the YouTube world doing gig logs, talking back and forth, and then response videos, and created this community. And they did a show, a Midwest DJs Live. It started as YouTube Live in Milwaukee, where Brian basically said, hey, let's get together and look at gear, or just go and hang out. And then that came down to Mobile Beat, and there's a whole story. But these guys were some of the early ones out there doing the things we're doing. And I guess they would be pioneers in that realm because they were ahead of us. They were ahead of, Phil from Digital DJ Tips. We were all behind them when it came to the world of YouTube and creating videos for educational content in this medium. So that would be Brian Red and Jonathan Lewis, who are DJ Tutor.
All right. So I guess that brings it to me. And I purposely have kept this one off my list because he's going to hate me for doing this. But John, you're on my list here. For those of you that don't know, I mean, this gentleman who has graciously allowed us to be a part of his life started DJing and creating a system and building it up. And then from there, taking it to the DJ News, the Disc Jockey News, and the paper publication, and has constantly surrounded himself by industry people that not just the people that we would love to be around, but also the people that everybody knows. And it's just like one of those things where when John, you become a friend to him, and it's one of those things that's always kind of, I think I've always looked up to you, John, because of that, because you don't have this highfalutin view of it. You always come at this from a servant heart, and I always greatly appreciate that. But you pushed the envelope with the DJ News and kept it going and kept it working with the newspaper, even when everybody was like, well, print is dead, you moved it to the digital format, and then solve things like Brian Red and DJ Tutor, and how using this video presentation was a way to take it. And then now you got these shows that are going every night. Well, every night that there is a show, but multiple nights a week, you have different groups that are coming in, and everything from little presentations, little 5-minute videos to, hour-long seminars and groups that are always pushing that envelope. Virtual expos, when people can't travel, they have a chance to tune in. And so, I am indebted to you and the things that you brought to this industry, and I'm not trying to talk you up too much. I apologize, but I want to thank you for what you've done for this industry, and you belong in this list. You were my number one, but I really couldn't lead the show with that. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate that, and it's just you mentioned one of the important things, and then we'll move on. Is that concept of team, and having a team of people that have a vision and want to give back, and that's what we do. So, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So on that note, we got to talk about something else, right? There's got to be other things because we can't just on a sappy note.
I've got some ideas.
All right. It can't be Huey Lewis, and it can't be Mega Save because I only have so much water left. I'm out of ideas.
You had to say it, didn't you?
I did because I needed a drink at that point.
I'm sorry. That's all I had.
Yeah.
So,
John, what do we got coming this week, though? Because you mentioned tomorrow night, Brian Scott.
Yep. Well, let's start at 10 o'clock here in about 15 minutes. Howie has got Big Daddy coming in, and there's another person that could be on this list. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of people we met in the industry that should be on this list. This wasn't an all-encompassing. These are just some of the names that we wanted to get out there. Big Daddy is one of the greatest people you will meet in the industry. He's going to be coming on and doing this. It's at DJNTV.com/chill. So it's not on YouTube tonight. It'll be on YouTube later this week, but not tonight. So if you want to go watch them do the recording, please go out to DJNTV.com/chill. They're going to be talking a little bit about Big Daddy's kind of history and background as a musician, and that's going to be kind of fun. Tomorrow night, there's a basketball game for myself with my children. So Brian and Jay are going to be kind of manning the fort tomorrow night in the chill room, and they'll be recording a session also, and that will be happening at 10 o'clock Eastern. Wednesday night, MJ, you've got
open question night.
Question night. Excellent.
Anything. If you want to ask me about. No, I was going to say the M word again. I can't help it.
Who's your favorite 5 DJs?
Yeah. It's interesting when the open question night, and I've had people who, because I ran one of those as far as I ran it afterwards, it took the recording and then we ran it up on Facebook a few days later, and somebody was asking question after question in the chat, and it's like, oh no, they don't realize that this is a recording.
I had somebody tune in to one of the ones you reran, and he's making comments, and I had to hit him up, and I'm like, dude, that was recorded, Wednesday.
Yeah,
he's like, oh, really? Okay, then I'll erase my things away. I'm like, well, if you have a question, you can ask me.
Yeah, exactly. That happens. So, and of course, Randy Bartlett hits his video hits Wednesday morning. Bill Herman also has a video that hits every Monday, and boy, he's been having some really good topics today, talking about somebody asked him the question about drinking at the event, and it's something we've touched. It's been touched on 100 different times, but it's kind of like, how much do you charge? It's still a hot topic in our industry. So
I was going to say only the proper answer is only when someone says the M word.
Excellent. So I think that's about it. So we can take it home.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking your time out of your night to join in. And I would encourage you, if you don't know about the names that any of us mentioned, whether it be, now, if you really don't know Thomas Edison, you got to go back and get mad at your high school, history teacher. But if you don't know the other names, I do encourage you to take a few moments, look them up, find out a little bit about them. You'll be glad you did. There's a lot of things to be learned from those people, and many others, like John said, that could be on our list. So again, don't forget, hanging with Howie coming up here in about 15 minutes. And everybody else, have a wonderful night.
Bye.